when the world speaks of war, it's already in it. That's quite a stark opening line from the source material we're tackling today.
It certainly sets a tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very provocative.
Absolutely. And it leads us into this deep dive on, well, a pretty unsettling but I think fascinating perspective on global conflict and maybe even communication itself.
Right.
We're looking at this concept the authors call the linguistic suicide of civilization. Big words.
Huge concept.
Yeah. So our mission today is really to unpack that. We're drawing from excerpts of an expert article. It's titled Global Cataclysm, The Linguistic Suicide of Civilization. It was prepared by an assistant to Dr. Mahmoudzhan Kучкарова for something called the Одам Тили Academy.
Right, the OTA. It's interesting because they seem to approach this whole thing from a linguistic angle, maybe philosophical, rather than purely military or political.
Exactly. And they jump right in claiming World War III isn't just some future possibility, but it's already a, quote, structure.
A structure.
Yeah, and that words, tech, leadership, it's all woven into this potential catastrophe.
It's a heavy start.
It is. So let's start right there with that huge claim, linguistic suicide of civilization. What does the source actually mean by that? It sounds dramatic.
It is dramatic, but what they seem to be arguing is that war isn't just about, bombs and bullets anymore.
Okay.
The Одам Тили Academy warns that words themselves, the meanings we attach to them, the narratives we build, these have become weapons.
Weapons in themselves.
Yeah, potentially just as deadly. They talk about a new kind of destruction emerging where information, speech, technology, it all merges together.
Into what?
Into what they call a total strike against humanity. So the idea is that the way we communicate, or maybe how we fail to communicate properly, is actually self-destructive on a civilizational scale.
Wow. Okay, the idea that language itself could lead us to ruin, that's a lot.
It is.
And they don't stop there. The source insists we're already in World War III. They list obvious signs. Can you walk us through what they point to?
Sure. They give several examples that, in their view, build this architecture of a new world war.
Architecture.
So things like the conflicts involving the U.S. and Iran, or Ukraine, China, Taiwan.
Yeah.
They don't see these as just separate political issues.
They're connected.
Exactly. As components of this larger ongoing structure of conflict.
Yeah.
They also mention this concept of an Iranian 12-day war.
What's that?
Well, it seems to be their hypothetical scenario, illustrating how quickly things could unravel, not just because of missiles, but because of a narrative collapse, a breakdown in meaning, essentially.
So a war fought with stories, almost.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
Or triggered by them.
Yeah.
They also point to Israel's role, claiming it acts as a, quote, proxy instrument for the U.S. and the Middle East.
A proxy instrument?
Maintaining what they call an artificial balance that's just waiting for the next explosion.
So it's this fragile setup built on narratives and perceived roles, not just firepower.
That seems to be the argument. And it gets scarier because they warn that any communication breakdown between leaders could become the trigger for a nuclear strike. Every single failed conversation is a potential spark.
That's terrifying. Does the source say why now? Why are these breakdowns so critical, especially with, all the new tech?
Yeah, they definitely connect it to technology. They argued the line between truth and, well, catastrophe is getting incredibly blurry.
How so?
Because of things like, and they list them, AI manipulation, deep fakes, digital war, and autonomous drones.
Okay, so fake news on steroids, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
But potentially state-sponsored or AI-generated fakes designed to create a false reason for war. Or even just an accidental escalation because nobody knows what's real anymore.
If the tech can fake reality to start a war, then who's actually in control? The article touches on this, right? It asks, what's scarier, the missile or the person pushing the button?
Exactly. And it makes some, pretty damning observations about global leaders.
Such as?
Well, first, it claims most leaders do not participate in hostilities. They're in bunkers. Their kids aren't on the front lines.
Right.
And from this observation, the source makes a very strong claim that black forces have already replaced leaders with their puppets.
Puppets. That's a huge accusation.
It's incredibly blunt. It suggests some hidden influence is really pulling the strings. And beyond that, it asserts many leaders suffer from cognitive decline, narcissism, or just detached from reality.
Wow.
So the implication is deeply worrying. We're trusting nuclear weapons to, quote, aging elites who have lost touch with humanity. It's questioning their competence, their connection, their very grip on reality.
So detached leaders, potential puppets. And you mentioned AI earlier. How does artificial intelligence fit into this picture as an accelerator?
AI is presented as a critical, maybe even central factor in escalating things.
In what way?
The article says, for instance, that algorithms manage public opinion.
Okay, shaping what we think.
Subtly, often without us realizing it. Then there's the whole deepfakes creating a false pretext for war issue we touched on.
Right, making it impossible to trust what you see or hear.
Precisely. And perhaps most alarmingly, it warns about autonomous nuclear drones. Systems that, once activated, are described as difficult to stop.
So AI making the decision, potentially. Or acting too fast for humans to intervene.
That seems to be the fear. The source paints this grim picture of global elites creating an algorithmic trap.
An algorithmic trap?
Yeah, a system where humans become secondary. We're no longer needed except maybe as a consumer or a soldier. It's quite dehumanizing.
That is a truly bleak outlook. AI is this runaway force, reducing people to cogs.
It's definitely a dystopian vision they're presenting.
But amidst all this doom, the article does offer, well, maybe a sliver of hope. It talks about meeting a new way of thinking, specifically a return to Odam Tili. What is that? What does this return involve?
This is where they pivot to their core philosophy, the Odam Tili Academy's proposed solution.
Okay.
Their fundamental idea is that language isn't just for talking. It's the root of thinking and action.
The root. So language shapes how we think and act.
That's the claim. And they argue that our civilization has lost connection with the origin of language.
Lost connection. What does that mean, practically?
It seems to me we've lost touch with the real, maybe foundational meanings of words. They've become distorted by politics, by media, by just superficial use. And when that happens, the civilization loses its bearings. Reality itself gets fractured.
So the solution is?
A radical reevaluation of language and consciousness. The Odam Tili theory proposes we need to reconnect words to their core meaning, to reality, almost stripping away the layers of manipulation.
Like a linguistic reset button?
Sort of, yeah. They see this conscious effort to restore the integrity of language as the only way to stop this slide into chaos, the only way out of the, quote, labyrinth of doom.
A profound concept, fixing the world by fixing our relationship with words.
It's definitely a neat perspective.
So if we don't make this return, if this linguistic suicide continues, what does the source predict? Does it make specific geopolitical forecasts?
It does. It offers some pretty direct projections for the near future.
Like what?
Well, it describes China as waging a long-term mental and economic war against the West.
Mental and economic, not military.
Not primarily. The weapons are, quote, patience and digits, information, strategy, economics.
Okay. What else?
The Middle East is called a sleeping volcano. One spark, they warn, can erase the world map. It emphasizes extreme fragility there.
Still a powder keg, basically.
According to this source, yes. And it also asserts the United States is not ready for the war it is unleashing.
Not ready. Why?
Especially, it says, under leadership that's oriented towards slogans, not meaning, employing a lack of deep understanding or strategic foresight.
Wow, another sharp critique of leadership.
Yes. And finally, it circles back to AI with that chilling warning. One wrong AI step and the button will be pressed.
Just one mistake.
That's the fear, which leads to their really profound concluding thought.
Go on.
The question is no longer whether World War III will begin. The question is, who will survive?
That definitely leaves you thinking. A heavy question to end on.
It forces you to consider the stakes they're outlining.
Absolutely. So the Odam Tili Academy, through this article, isn't just sounding an alarm. They're offering what they see as a key to salvation, this return to the origin of language, reconnecting word, body, reality.
As the only way out of the labyrinth of doom.
It certainly makes you reflect on how much language, how communication, how information shapes everything around us. And maybe what it really means to be well-informed today when words themselves are framed as potentially lethal, something for all of you listening to consider.